Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you can see, or hopefully see, we are on video for the first time in a long time. I have some lovely guests that are here to talk to us that I will introduce in a second. Just a couple housekeeping. As usual, if you have questions, please use the question box and type in whatever you're looking to find out. We will either try and address them during the webinar, and if not, we will include them in the follow-up that we send a couple of days after the webinar. We do record these. We know a lot of you sign up and watch them later or share them with your staff, and that's fine. So that link will also be included in the follow-up email that we send as well. So with that, we have a lot of stuff to cover today. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. Today we are talking about, post-COVID. It's been a year, believe it or not. I know it's kind of seems like it happened yesterday and seems like it happened 20 years ago, right? We've all been kind of stuck in motion where we are, and things are kind of starting to open up depending on where you live. So we thought it would be fun or interesting to kind of get the input from some fellow title friends. And so I'm going to go ahead and maybe move the slide down. No, okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. We have Shonna Cardello, who is president of White Rose Settlement Services. So Shonna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We have Angela Saiz, vice president of, fiduciary banking at Capital Bank NA. And we have Wayne Stanley, who is owner and chief inspiration officer at Bowe Digital. So just kind of what we thought would be nice to have the input from someone who works in title every day and night and weekends. Someone on the banking side who also knows title inside and out from previous experience. And then of course, Wayne Stanley, who is from more of the marketing side, but knows the title industry and used to work at Alta. So all of them are gonna have kind of a unique perspective, which is what we were looking for. So just kind of to let you know what we're gonna talk about, we are gonna talk about just different things that have kind of happened over the year or we've seen over the year. The first one being strategies that adopted by our industry to help face COVID, how our industry fueled growth amidst uncertain market, new technology and what we think is here to stay. Our virtual industry, I know everyone's tired of that word, but it's really kind of kept us where we need to be and probably allows for a lot of stuff that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have it. 2021 mortgage rate and market expectations, and then just kind of an overall what we think our industry is going to be moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of there. And Shonna, I think we're going to start with you. And I think what we're going to do is just kind of talk a little bit about, what are some of the strategies that you saw over the past year or that you implemented? I mean, you own a title company. You definitely had to kind of figure things out, and people talk about remote closings, drive-up closings, socially distanced closings. So what are some of the things that you guys adapted to meet the challenges of COVID-19?
Well, thanks, Leslie. We had a unique experience as we were the only state in the country that real estate was shut down for 3 months. You could not buy or sell a home if you didn't have a contract on record as of, I think it was March 18th last year. So I called our competitors and said, hey, what are we doing? We're not licensed by the Real Estate Commission, and we all decided because insurance was essential, and that's who we are licensed by, for staying open. And that was different forms and fashion. For me at White Rose, I sent my entire staff of coworkers home, other than Sharon Hikes with me, our director of operations. She and I were in the office every day, working 10, 12, 14-hour days to get settlements rolling. Everybody else had to adjust to work from home. Luckily, I had already had the laptops from home in process. I had made it a rule over the past 25 years that I did not want my staff to have computers at home and to log in, because when they're home, I want them to have family time. We know how easy it is just to jump on the computer and check things and check emails. Well, COVID changed all that. I also didn't, we used to try and protect their personal cell phone numbers from clients. Well, COVID changed all that. They were using cell phones and we have internet phones. We could take our landline home for our receptionists to answer their phones. But that really changed a lot. So, and we have some that live by themselves, and it was fine to adjust, other than trying to figure out the whole work from home. And then we had others who are moms and dads. So they literally went from being at work every day, 40 hours a week, to stay-at-home parent, teacher, and trying to figure out how this whole virtual is going to work. Pennsylvania was also unique, not so unique, but we didn't have remote online notarization. We had a bill that a year ago, 2 years ago, was to be passed, and then unfortunately the House, the representative who sponsored it, I think he's in jail now. So we had to start the wheel over. Remote online notarization. He might have had some things on his computer with children that he shouldn't have had. He's out. Yeah, so we had to start remote online notarization again, and they passed it with flying colors, but there's so much red tape in Pennsylvania to try and do remote online notarization now, and certain counties are not on board with it, that it makes it difficult. I was lucky to have my friends in Ulta, so when you ask like how our industry has changed, I could call Brooks or Wayne or somebody and be like, oh my gosh, I need help. I'm not sure how to get this done, or I haven't heard from anybody. And they jumped to it. They got what we needed done. We honestly have not done a remote online notary because then once that was changed, and the notary law had to change as well. We chose to stay open. We chose to allow buyers and sellers in the building. We couldn't allow real estate agents in because they were not allowed to work. So we separated the buyers and sellers. Luckily, I have a old home that's 4,000 square feet, so I could separate people, and our offices are already separated. And that's what we did. We stayed open, we made it work, and our business doubled last year. Wow. A lot of people in the area would do drive-through settlements. They would let the buyers in, and they're still doing them, or let the buyers in, but not the sellers. The sellers would sit in the car and do a drive-through. Unfortunately, the attorneys in Pennsylvania had to shut down also. They weren't essential. So if you were, it was bad. So if you were a title agent, a licensed agent, you could stay open. If you were an attorney that did title insurance under your law firm, you could not stay open.
That's interesting. So
it created a real mess. And then the other problem we had in Pennsylvania was things changed every week or every other week. So when you finally got into place a new protocol and you let your clients know what was happening, then the next week something changed. And then the next week something changed. So it was exhausting. And I'm glad we're a year into it and working through it. I said the employees, when they were home for the 3 months, that real estate was shut down and everybody was to telework. So when that opened up, they came back, and we have been back in the office since June. I know Pennsylvania is a little different than some states. Like, we still have buyers and sellers sitting across from the table wanting to talk to each other and handing the keys and figuring out, hey, how's this light switch work? Or what about the pool or the fireplace? Unlike California, for instance, who the buyers and sellers never meet. So that's been a challenge for us. So we've done really well with it. And I think that is because a lot of our connections and contacts with our friends in the industry, that we could keep moving forward and call each other and get a plan of attack together, what we were going to do.
Yeah, it's crazy that you've been all in the office since June. I mean, I know, maybe Wayne, you want to kind of speak to it a little bit too, but I know that you've seen, and I've seen, a lot of people still aren't back into the office, or they're slowly trying to keep their employees back in. So I don't know, Wayne, what have you seen over the past year as far as, what the industry's done? I know that a lot of people have reached out to you as to what they can do virtually and stuff like that. So what have you seen?
Yeah, so when I started Bowe Digital 4 years ago, I had a plan that it would always be remote. So we didn't have the same struggles of learning how to do that. We also don't do title work or mortgages. So it's very different for us. But we had a lot of people reach out that some previously that sort of like Shonna that had always said, like, we'll never do this remote thing, or maybe not remote, but we won't outfit our employees to be able to work from anywhere or at all times and that sort of thing. And we had lots of people reach out wanting advice of not even on the technology or the how-tos for the business side, but their culture. How do we keep our team engaged now that everybody's at home? Or like Shonna said, people have kids, and there were so many other outside factors, politically, socially, all of that stuff that we've all seen and talked about for the last year that were affecting people normally where they would have that escape to be at the office or be at home. And it was all of a sudden combined. So we had a lot of people asking, how to do that. And with a growing team that we have, how are we doing it? How are we seeing it with some of our customers around the country? And for me, I always say, like, the biggest thing with anything on the remote side with employees is trust. There just has to be an immense amount of trust there. And whenever we're interviewing, even to this day, I talk about how they have to trust that we're going to give them the tools that they need to do the job well, and we're going to trust that that they're working during the day. And there are a lot of tools out there that I think people have utilized that take screenshots every 15 minutes of people's machines, and they have all these crazy check-ins and all of that. And we don't do any of that. You'll know, I think most companies, you'll know if the work's not being done. And that's what we've seen with most title agents, I think, is they've tried to work in that trust where before maybe they did have some really crazy check-ins and had a very strict management process or a hierarchy within their organization. And I think we've seen a lot kind of relax that a little bit to give people the room that they need to do the job and do it well, because like Shonna said, many people saw a huge growth in business last year. So they were not only having to do their normal job, but they were having to double everything that they had been doing previously, which was not easy for a lot of folks.
Yeah, you brought up a good point too. I think our industry has never really been one to promote or think, oh, we should look at remote options. Our industry has been very much in the past brick and mortar, 9 till whenever your job is done, and if you have to come in on the weekends, you come in the weekends. And I know from some part of it is mentality of also security, right, of the information. So, people weren't real keen on diving into that. But, I think it's opened the eyes of a lot of people in our industry, at least people I've talked to, that saying, my people are killing it. Like, they're even more productive at home. And I said, well, you have to remember that they don't have commute times. They don't have this, they don't have that. They don't have to take off to do this. So to your point, Wayne, if you have employees that you trust, I think you're in a good position to continue remote work from home people if you want. And, we can talk about this later as well, but Wayne, you and I have always said in other presentations, when you allow people to work remotely, you also open up your talent pool more, right? People don't have to live. So you can really hire anybody from anywhere, and you can expand your hours too. So, you can use the time zone to your advantage instead of a disadvantage of, how long you're open and customers have access to you. So I think those are really good points. So Angela, what have you seen from the lending side as far as, I feel like that's a little bit different and has a little bit harder to work from home with security and data breaches and whatnot. So what have you seen?
Sure. So in terms of on the, as a fiduciary banker, I predominantly am on the deposit side. We do, of course, have both commercial, Capital Bank has both commercial real estate as well as residential home loans. So we have always, as far as our technology, I had always told everyone that, they can kind of work anywhere, anytime from any device. We have always supplied being able to remote access, as far as online banking, being able to offering mobile check deposits as well as remote deposit scanners. So they were able to continue to work remotely as far as their banking. As a bank, as far as Capital Bank, I've always said we were very nimble. One of the things before this happened, I would talk to people and I'd say we're a community bank. And so I would say in the event of inclement weather, you don't have to worry about our wire room. We're fully equipped to work remotely. And we were always set up that way so that, your wires will definitely go out. You don't have to worry about that. And I never thought of it as being a pandemic. I thought of it as being, hey, there's snow on the ground and they can't commute into work. So we were able to pivot very quickly as an organization. One of the things we'd already been looking at in terms of DocuSign in order to be able to add or change signers or add online banking services they may not have, add somebody new to Positive Pay. So we were able to do all of that through DocuSign, which was very advantageous for us. And
Yeah, I mean, I can't even, sorry, go ahead. Nope.
Oh, no, as far as on the lending side, same thing. We pivoted very, very quickly. And, you know, we also had what were called the PPP loans to address. And I think that we as a team just dug in our heels and did what we needed to do. I know that we might cover this later, but, you know, initially we didn't know how title was going to be affected. We didn't know that Shonna's business was going to, you know, potentially double, and in how busy we were going to be. I don't think any of us really knew what to think. And so that first round of funding was critical. And I can say that every single one of, you know, people, everyone that came to me and said, hey, I need this PPP loan, they were able to get it in that first round. So, which was exciting. I learned a lot more about the lending side than I had ever known, including how to, you know, submit everything on E-Tran between midnight and 5 a.m.
It's the little things.
Right?
No, I was just gonna say, I can't even imagine this, with the rates so low and the amount of refinances people were doing, let alone a booming market. I can't even imagine like a lender not being able to do a lot of e-sign docs, remote closings and all that, because, you know, everyone was trying to take advantage of these, you know, historically low rates, which we are going to talk about, but I can't even imagine if we weren't able to adapt to that. So
Exactly.
I'm going to stick with you, Angela, and say, how do you think, you know, our industry fueled growth? It's one thing to kind of stay in business, right? I think that's what everyone was trying to do. And then the market surprisingly did not tank, right? It in fact was booming. And then you add in these rates and you've got refinances as well. So people are trying to say, okay, I want to capture this business. And Shonna, you know, I'm very interested to hear about how you went about that. And Wayne, I know you've helped a lot of people with this. So, you know, from your side, Angela, how have you seen like the industry fuel this, you know, to get new business, to grow their business, not just try and hang on?
Sure. So just disclaimer, these are my opinions, and, you know, have nothing to do with Capital Bank at this point. You know, as far as fueling the growth, I think getting your message across, I think utilizing like people like Wayne with search engine marketing, all of the search engine optimization, you know, reaching as many potential people that you possibly can electronically, because that's where people were spending their time. You know, they were online. I think also, I saw a lot of the relationships continue to develop and get even, I would say, deeper. You know, when it's easy when you are relying on somebody that, you know, you can go out and visit with them and shake their hand and say, here's what I can do for you. I think that they needed to see a lot of the proof is in the pudding. This is what we did do for you. I think, you know, I know that there was a lot of media surrounding kind of, especially that first round of PPP funding. I know that a lot of the smaller banks, you know, needed to have that personalized relationship with somebody that you could call. So I know that, you know, I think bankers and lenders and people that were willing to answer the phone and to put in the long hours and do the work, I think they really made customers for life. And I also think, you know, obviously with the rates being so historically low, I mean, like, what was it, 2.71% for a 30-year fixed was the average in 2020. That's the lowest in history.
Yeah, that's I mean, we refinance, we're like, why not? Everyone else is doing it. So Wayne, what have you seen? I feel like, you know, a lot of people were kind of thrown into this, right? And they weren't expecting such a hot market, which is a great problem to have. And I think that a lot of people probably look to you and to, you know, people that have the background that you have as far as what can we do to get in front of our customers to generate more business. What did you see?
It all went back to basic communication. I mean, at first it was, having been in the industry for a while now, or around the industry, I haven't been in the industry, I suppose, but I would say that it still surprised me how many title agents were sort of unprepared to communicate with their customers in a situation like this, to be able to very simply say, like in Shonna's case, we're open or we're not, we're doing drive-through closings or we're not, just those general updates. People were at first kind of at a loss. Not everyone, lots of companies I think because of various underwriter initiatives, best practices with Alta, whatever. They may have had some of that planned, but maybe not, even if they had a crisis communications plan, it may not have looked like this, full-blown shutdown or something. But I would say, a lot of them were just, they were asking us, how do we use our title production software like SoftPro to pull a customer list? How do we were doing how-tos within their own production softwares to find their customer contacts, because they might have done really well, whether they had a dedicated sales team or marketing team, reaching out to customers or seeing them face-to-face or doing the drop-ins and the events. That might have all been firing on all cylinders, but to communicate with them otherwise was difficult for a lot of folks at first. And for the ones that did have that, now they were trying to think through how do I now differentiate that from somebody else? We all can't say you've got to wear a mask, or we're going to have a barrier, or you're going to be in the parking lot. How do we deal with that? And so we saw and helped a lot of people kind of innovate in their own communication. Folks that have fought me for 3 or 4 years on video implementation are doing things like this every single day now, are starting TikTok accounts, and just, whatever was growing in their market at the time, being far more interested in adopting that, not even the technology, but whatever those trends were with how other people were communicating or consuming information, adapting that into their way of life in a way that, I think traditionally the industry doesn't always want to be ahead of that, that it'll trickle down when it needs to in a lot of those respects. But for this, I think the ones that moved ahead quickest were those that figured out how to communicate in the most unique ways and cut through. Like I tell everybody, from March to June, we did more content than we normally do in an entire year, in social marketing, emails, website updates, all of that. And that's just in our little world. So when you think about that for all of us and all the other messages you're receiving out there, to cut through all of that was no small feat for a lot of these title agents. And the ones that figured out how to do it and could lead, like Shonna and a lot of Angela's customers, were the ones that I think ended up being ahead of the game in this.
Yeah, and it was interesting, and we saw, and you guys probably all saw it, and kind of what you touched on, Wayne, is 2 things. One, before, if you ask somebody to turn their camera on, they basically became unavailable for a meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's like, oh gosh, turn your camera on. I haven't seen anybody in a year, So for a while, I think everyone's mindset changed, not even from we need it for our business. They needed it for their personal sanity, right? For keeping your company culture and being able to see your teams. And, I've seen a lot of people utilize, we did a virtual escape room or a trivia, and I think it helps keep everyone engaged. And then we just had somebody make a comment, which I know who they are, so I'll thank her personally, and she made a really good point. She said one of the best things of the pandemic is that our industry had to reevaluate the way we use and look at technology. And I think she's 100% right. And I know, Wayne, you've always thought that. So I think it's interesting to see some of the good things that have come out of it, right? And we all thought, we'll sit down for 2 weeks. It was kind of fun. Everyone's cooking, making bread, calling it a day, and next thing you know, it was like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And it became very clear that things were not going to open up anytime soon. And I personally think I know when we at SoftPro started the calls, we're okay, how can we get our employees online safely? How can we still do our business? And I'm sure, Wayne, that's probably when you saw an influx of people saying, okay, you were right, Wayne, let's go ahead and do some of this technology stuff. And so it's been very interesting to kind of focus on some of the good things that have come of it. Obviously it's been a tough year for people, but it's not all bad. There's a lot of good things that have come too. So Shonna, I'm very interested to see what you did or what people in your area have done to kind of fuel some business in the industry.
Stayed open. Honestly, I think that was the biggest thing for us. We've been around 25 years this July. I was 4 when we opened. Yeah, thank you. And I've always said with marketing, I don't need to be your number 1. I would like to be your number 2 if you are already loyal to somebody else, because I appreciate that loyalty from my clients and I give loyalty also. So, it's okay. And that philosophy helped a lot with when the attorneys were shut down and some people were doing drive-throughs and things, that the business came. Nicely enough, they're still sending the business in and did not totally abandon us when we bailed them out. We had a bank, she called brilliant, and she said, oh my gosh, I need help. We have they already had their block ready to sell of loans that had to settle by the end of March, or it was going to pretty much ruin their whole balance sheet for the year. And she said, "Can you bail us out?" I'm like, "Yep, send them over. We got them done." So I just told my coworkers, "Hey, here's what we're going to do to get it done." And it just kept rolling after that. The other thing we did when the real estate agents couldn't work, and now you could do it virtual. You could buy a home virtually. But in Pennsylvania and Maryland, unless you're in Ocean City, virtual is not really an option to buy a house because it's going to be the home you're living in. People want to see it and feel it. It's not like a second home in Florida or they have a relationship. So we would send them like a gas card, with a little thank you note when they couldn't work, or, just a lottery ticket or something, just to get them like, "Hey, we're thinking about you. We're here," and we had all the staff reaching out to the clients, real estate agents. It was a nightmare for a bit when you're told you can't work and everybody else can work. The other thing, we bought little hand sanitizers and everybody gets them. So, and the other thing we did from day one, when you walk in our building, you must go wash your hands, even today. We'll probably keep that.
Yeah.
Because we think about it, it's like, just go wash your hands. Everybody wash your hands and then come back into settlement. And it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think people want to see consistency. They want normalcy. And so like being able to stay open or go do a closing, especially if someone's purchased a home before, they have expectations of what a closing or buying a home is, right? And so I think being able to offer that obviously is going to help you stay relevant and in business for sure. Another thing that I think is interesting is one of the reasons why our markets expanded and we're booming so much, not only were the rates, but when people were allowed to work from home, it opened up new opportunities for where they were going to live, right? Like, so I didn't need to live right in the city because I'm not commuting, and my company is now saying I'm not going back for 2 to 3 years, which some of the large corporations have already come out with. Then that opens up, areas that people maybe wouldn't have been able to buy before, and they can afford a home instead of paying high rent in the city. And so that was always interesting to me too. And so for them to be able to look in and around where you are in your area, Shonna, and say, "Oh my gosh, they're open. They can help me out. It's not virtual. It's face to face. I've never purchased a home." I think that's helpful and makes people feel a little bit more comforting. So.
But yeah, I cannot imagine, and I know everybody has their own situation, what they want to do, but I cannot imagine giving a first-time home buyer, Angela, your son, that's going to buy his first house shortly, and send them an email with 100 pages in it and say, "Read this tonight and let me know tomorrow morning if you have any questions." Walk out, hand them a clipboard with "sign here's" or highlighted, stand there and wait for 10 minutes while they sign them and get that back. There's just so much conversation that happens, even one-on-one like this, that they'll ask questions that I was never comfortable doing that. And I understand everybody has to do their own comfort level, but for me, I like to know that they understand what they're signing, they understand what their interest rate and their fees are, and the escrows, things like that they have a good handle on it. And people are afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. They're more apt to have a conversation with you and it come up in conversation and questions face to face. I get that. I mean, that said, obviously, like you said, everyone has to do what they can do. Angela, I know you and I both live in the areas that have been extremely locked down since the beginning, and we are just now starting to open up. Like I've told them, my kids are literally going back to school for the first time in almost a year this week. So, we kind of had, I think some people in our areas maybe had to become a little bit more creative in the way that they did closings. Illinois, albeit sometimes is allowed, they're not big, they're not equipped for online notary closings either. They still send someone to your house. In this case, it's to the porch. People would sign, hand their papers back. So, like you said, Shonna, people really had to do what they had to do to stay open, but every area is a little different. So it's been interesting to see what they've come up with and how they've stayed in there. So. And then the phone call up. Oh, so my seller has tested positive for COVID. So now that's fun. It's like, oh, well, hey, don't come in. Yeah. We're going to work something out. Always fun. We touched base when you started with, and I'm going to start with you on this. Technology, I know we talked about how that helped people kind of differentiate themselves in the same business, but one of the biggest questions people ask me, and Wayne, I'm sure you get this, and I'm sure everybody does, is, do you think it's here to stay, all the technology people are using? And, my 2 cents is yes and no. Obviously, the conferences that we're doing online, people want to be back in person. I mean, I know we all want to, take a trip and see everyone and have that face-to-face, but I do think that people do realize now that they can have employees stay home because they have this technology and work. They can offer that to maybe build their business and bring in better talent. They can do some conferences and cut costs or meetings via virtually versus in person, and then they can also do in person. So very interested to get your take on what you've seen title companies really implement, and what do you think is kind of here to stay?
I think finally video is here to stay. We touched on that a minute ago, but I can remember even a year ago, right before March of last year, I would send out, we've been on Zoom since I started the company. I would send out a Zoom link. People didn't know how to use it. They would fight me on it. They would, can I just have a call-in number? I don't want to do this. And for us as a remote company, I saw the value in seeing people face-to-face. It's way easier to feel disconnected from a vendor that you have or a business partner that you have that you don't actually see. You need that human connection in some way. And so for us, that was important. And I think people see that now. And like you were saying, Leslie, people needed to just feel that connection. Shonna said, as we were preparing for this, that she missed her Ulta friends, like just that being able to have those conversations. And you can talk on the phone, and we've all been before when we were traveling, we did all kinds of calls. I'm boarding a plane right now. I'm in the airport. Sorry, it's so noisy, all of that. And, we would apologize for these things that I just don't think we are anymore. And I think that's kind of nice. I think that for a lot of folks that were adopting that before, it was very buttoned up. People expected a lot of production value. If you were doing video, they were very afraid to do anything that felt more like grassroots or homemade or, well, I don't know about what's happening behind me, or I don't like the way I look today and all of that. Now it's like, there are a million memes that we could share about how it was going at the beginning versus how it is today. But, and in some ways that's probably not great, but I think overall a more casual conversation is a more real one. And being able to show, I say all the time, the differentiator for title companies or mortgage makers or whoever is typically the people that are working there, not any of the technology and all that. And so video is a great way that you can mirror that. I think another piece of technology that has shocked me how quickly people have adopted it in the industry has been artificial intelligence, whether that's through chatbots or other things that they can utilize in their marketing, drip campaigns, to use some marketing jargon for us today, but things that are automatically being sent out to your customers utilizing tools like Close Simple, that's doing the pizza tracker kind of stuff. Just all of that that involves automation or artificial intelligence in some way is something that before, I think a lot of title agents especially, I would hear pretty often, well, we'll do that when my underwriter asks me to do it, or we'll do that when my 3 biggest, brokerages in town start asking for something like that. And now they're, maybe not, they don't see themselves as leading the way, but they're utilizing those tools because it's making their life easier. They've had a business increase like Shonna talked about, and the person who maybe did answer all of those typical questions that came in from the website or at your front desk is now helping with closings and is not available to have that same role. And so if you're able to utilize a free chatbot tool to answer the 5 most asked questions, you can ask any person on your team, what are the 5 most asked or 5 most annoying questions that you get at the front desk? That's something you can easily put into a chatbot. If people are asking about it and you're annoyed, it means you're not communicating about it well enough. So if it's about, where do I park at closing? What do I need to bring to closing? What might delay my closing? That stuff that you send the same thing over and over, you can put that into artificial intelligence and have somebody automatically, when they send that at 9 p.m. and they're on your site, it can automatically answer them. And it's something we've been pushing for a while, and I just did not expect the industry to adopt that kind of stuff nearly as quickly as it seems to be. But I would love, Shonna's, I don't know if she's seeing that as much, or if that's anything that, you know, you'd ever be open to, if that's something that matters in your market, but that's what we're seeing with a lot of our folks.
I think it does. And as our being open 25 years, our initial clients, we still have some clients from 25 years ago, but we have new younger clients as well. So trying to pull them in, and we love Close Simple. They're a great company, and that pizza tracker and the welcome docs have been a lifesaver in the automation. And we're starting to do some of that chat, but Wayne, I should probably talk to you later about that to learn some more, because I just learned a few things from you there that we're not probably doing that we should be.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like from a support perspective, right? He's calling in and talking to someone, and okay, you're in the queue. Somebody who can answer your question will call you back. That's like, I mean, if somebody told me I had to do that now, I'd be like, what? There's no way I'm doing that. Like, I want to just, you know, type something and have the option of holding or getting a call back or whatever that may be to wait. And I don't care if it's automated. I mean, I prefer it to be automated, and I can just go about doing whatever else I'm going to do. And then when they are ready for me, they'll give me a call or reach out. So, I mean, I think we see it not only in our industry, but we're seeing it more everywhere, right?
I think the biggest struggle, and Angela, you're probably seeing this with your lenders, with your borrowers rather, I think that whether it's on the commercial or the residential side, I think that the hardest thing for title agents or anybody in banking right now is exactly what Shonna just said. You have these, I call them legacy customers, people that maybe still have 5 to 10 years left of business to give you, that you can't push them too far down the technology path or the communication path. And they are what kept you going for the last several decades. But you've also got new customers that you've got to adapt to and be ready to serve, because they're going to have more of that pie in the next few years. And a lot of agents are not equipped to serve both of those audiences really well right now without a lot of education and helping to communicate that to their customers. So I think a lot of this stuff that is here to stay as far as technology goes, and in terms of communication or marketing even, I think helps bridge those two demographics. I don't know, I'm not taking your moderator job, Leslie, but I don't know, Angela, if you agree with that with your borrowers right now.
Wayne, you're correct. I mean, I can think even for me personally, from my title customers, and I hope that this person isn't listening right now, but I do have one title client who still faxes in their wires to our wire room. And, you know, as a smaller bank, we offer concierge banking, and that's what it entails. I mean, it doesn't matter that you can talk about, you know, it's much easier to just do it online. They want to fax those in, and I didn't even know that, like, I don't have a fax anymore. But so I definitely have see that. But we have clients who have always been, you know, I think, as far as your EMDs, it's been, there's technology involved with that. There's a number of companies out there that, you know, allows you to take the EMD and just get it directly deposited into your escrow account. And, you know, that's a great marketing tool for your realtors. And I see that a lot of clients use that technology. So we offer both. We have to, you have to. I think it's being able to be nimble enough and kind of having all, you know, different, I would call verticals, as far as, you know, who specializes in, you know, your kind of hand holding for your long-term existing customers that are slow to adapt to change. And sometimes it's a matter of just offering assistance on how they want to get there. They just don't necessarily know how. So whether it's you offering to jump on a call and walk them through it, you know, whatever it is, remote in and be able to kind of show them how to do it. I think you're right too, also when it comes to the communication, you know, that things have changed. So you have to make sure that you can market to your existing people who've gotten you where you are, as well as, you know, where you want to go and where you're going.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting as things are reopening. I think we will see a lot more will stay with us than we maybe originally anticipated, just because people are used to it now, right? I mean, it's such ease. So speaking of technology and virtual, Wayne, I am hoping that virtual conferences soon ends and I can see people in person. That's more of a selfish thing. I do like the option for people to maybe join virtually that maybe can't travel, whether it be for a million different reasons, right? I do think it's kind of opened up some stuff that maybe wasn't there in the past, which I like. But I'm wondering, Wayne, what your take is on all these virtual conferences and video conferencing. And I do want you to talk a little bit about social media, because I feel like before it was kind of like, meh, we'll have a web page, we'll have a few posts, and we'll use, you know, Instagram and maybe YouTube here and there. But I feel like, I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of our customers' new podcasts or tips of the weeks or funny things that happen and, you know, closings during COVID. And I'm interested in your thoughts on if you think that'll continue, because I think it should. And I'm hoping that people embrace social media a lot more than they did before for marketing and advertising and whatnot. But love to hear your thoughts, Wayne.
When all this started, I had a joke with my team. Anytime somebody said the word virtual, I would do like the wave from the stand, because I just couldn't, that word, I just couldn't handle anymore. I've gotten over it, sort of, maybe. But I think that, I hope that a lot of in-person meetings come back in the way that we remember. But I think that you're right. I think you're going to see a lot of hybrid options for a long time. There are a lot of folks that feel like they still got all of the education that they were hoping for last year, even though they were busy, even though everything else, without having to step foot into a hotel or a conference center or something like that. Part of that is because everybody pivoted and they were offering this stuff virtually, but not sending their staff out, all of that. I think that there will be people that forevermore are interested in a hybrid option. I think groups are going to have to talk a lot more about the value and benefit of in-person networking and in-person sort of information exchange and how that works and why that's so important, you know, because a lot of the companies just don't understand that. So I think that those meetings will be there and will be important and aren't going away, but I think there will forever be a hybrid option for people that want that. If I could give, if you're doing virtual meetings for your team or you're hosting virtual meetings at all, you've got to figure out a way to make them engaging. I think that's my biggest tip for folks moving forward. I think the worst thing that's happening right now is people call something a virtual meeting, but it's really a webinar like this, or it's a like a Zoom meeting plus. And I think don't try to put whatever you're doing into a certain bucket just because these are the buzzwords of the day. Call it what it is, set expectations up front. I think that helps immediately with engagement. It drives me crazy if somebody says, yeah, I'm going to a virtual conference and I'm actually getting on a GoToWebinar meeting, because that is not the same. When I'm thinking of a conference, I expect the conference experience, if whether it's free or I'm paying for it or it's discounted this year. Think about what you're selling to people. Again, whether that's an internal, you know, training that you do, a team culture day that you might have, whatever it is. But think about ways to make it more engaging. I mean, even if it's something as simple, we started doing with some of our groups, we play, have you ever played Werewolf? Have any of you three ever played the game Werewolf?
No.
It's a lot of fun, but it's definitely an in-person, it's meant to be in person, and it's sort of like a live Guess Who kind of situation. But we figured out how to adapt that into a virtual meeting where we can have people private chat and that sort of stuff to make it fun. We've played Two Truths and a Lie with people, like whatever you can do to get them talking, whether they are comfortable on camera or not. Engagement is not just like sending people to all the vendors for a chance to win a $50 gift card. I mean, true engagement, that whole piece that we're all missing, that interaction, is what I think has to get added back to these virtual experiences. But then the last thing that I'd say about all of this on the social side is that as much as people have adopted social in ways that I never expected, I used to host a social media summit at Alta, and people would spend all day with me talking about social, and at the end they'd walk up and say, "Yeah, not happening," which was, you know, mind-blowing. But I think we're past that as an industry. But now we have, you know, I get asked every day, what's the future of Facebook? Do I really need to be on there? Twitter's so politicized now. Do I, you know, how do I cut through that noise? How do I, you know, without paying lots of money each month, how do I compete and get my content seen by people? I think now there's this whole maybe you've adopted social media, but if you're just showing that your lights are on and you're going through the motions and you post, you know, your holiday post, or when your underwriter sends you a rate change, that's probably not enough, and you're probably wasting your time. You've got to do more than that, unfortunately, these days to cut through the noise. So it's not going anywhere, but it's going to keep looking very different. I don't know. Shonna's laughing. I don't know if you have thoughts there, Shonna.
No, I agree with everything you said, and you know, you're right. I mean, the option of having a virtual meeting is great. I don't love it. I think I've done maybe, I'm the worst case for this. This is probably my 4th or 5th video that I've actually agreed to do, because I'm like, no. I had, because I was here every day and working, and I didn't realize how lucky I was to be here working every day when everybody else was home and couldn't do it. There was so much of the depression or the just figuring things out where my life didn't, well, my life changed a lot because I was working 12 hours and nonstop, but it didn't change. Like, I could still go to my office. So taking that out of it, the whole virtual thing, I'm starting to embrace now, Wayne, you'll be proud. But like, I would love to go to SPUG this year. I'm not doing it virtual because I know I don't learn virtually. For me, sitting with you guys, having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and making those connections with Paul from Close Simple, or you and Leslie and Patrick, you know, just with Capital Bank, that's where I get it, and that's where I noticed how I could build the business this year as well, from those connections that we made in person and in the last year to 10 years. So yeah, I agree. Virtual is good, but there's a lot of us too who want to be back in person and see, touch, and feel when it's safe to do that, and to start learning about new things. You know, and the other problem for us is when I'm at my office, it's hard to get away. When we joke, Shonna time's always 10 minutes late, because as I'm walking out the door, somebody's like, "Hey, I have a question. Hey, I have a question," and you answer your coworker's question, and then it makes you $10 or 10 minutes late. So it's that getting away and being focused on, you know, like the social media summit and other things was nice to have, and you could focus on things that way better for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you know, being able to do both, I think, is nice, and I think it's an option that allows more people to attend things and get more stuff out of it. You know, some people are looking for very hands-on, so a remote hands-on training is fine. You know, they are going to sit at a computer, so it doesn't matter where they are. Other is more networking, right? So I think, you know, being able to do both is very important. And I think moving forward, hopefully, you know, we will have more hybrid options versus all virtual. So Angela, I do want to talk a little bit about these amazing rates. We don't need to spend too much time talking about how amazing 2020 was with them, because most of us know it. Shonna lived through it. Most of us refinanced or looking to buy or whatnot. What do you think? I mean, they're still pretty low. So, you know, what are your thoughts? And again, these are just Angela's thoughts. We're just, you know, lucky to have her on the lending side there, but they're her own personal thoughts. But like, what do you see kind of this year happening with the rates and the refinances? Are they kind of here to stay, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I read a lot, you know, as we all do in this industry. We look. I do know that, you know, according to Freddie and Fannie, and you know, one of the benefits of my former life was being very involved in the MBA. I've continued that even now as a banker. You know, we're really looking at all of 2021 as far as a 30-year fix. They're thinking an average of just over 3. That's very low still. You know, I think the demand, I mean, we can't keep up with the demand. I don't know about other areas. I know that I shared that my 23-year-old son is buying his first home settling on Friday. It was a pretty easy process for him. I was actually shocked by it, a little concerned, but shocked. I mean, happy. So I found that, you know, his particular home that he's settling on, first day on the market, 11 people looked at the home, 4 offers. So I think that, you know, the demand is definitely something that is there, and it's going to stay. So it's certainly still going to be a seller's market in 2021. I think we all know the biggest group right now purchasing are millennials, and that's going to continue. I know, Leslie, you touched on it earlier in saying that people now can choose where they want to live. They don't have to necessarily live for a commute. So people are really, and so speaking of the refi, people can they get some cash out so that they can make their home their dream home? They're spending so much time in their homes that, I see a lot of that. I know from personal experience, I sold a home in June, bought a new one, and had to completely renovate. And I don't mean a little renovation, I mean everything. I mean kitchen, bath, floor, everything. Contractor promises 2 months. My husband is a contractor, by the way. Even with him managing it, I went without a kitchen for 4.5 months. So kind of like what Shonna would be, somebody came down with COVID or the cabinet manufacturer was delayed. So I think that, I definitely see the cash out refis continuing because people want to make it their home. Rates are going to stay low through 2021. So I think we're going to have a great year as an industry, and I'm excited. I will say that, in the second round of PPP, I did not have one single title company apply because they didn't meet that criteria because they had to show a 25% loss in a quarter. And even in that, one would think that maybe Q2 of 2020, they might have a loss, and they didn't, not one. So
crazy.
I think that speaks of our industry. And I feel, I don't know, I feel incredibly blessed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our market is just like yours. I mean, the minute something is on the market, it is, and if it's I live in Chicago, for those who may not know, and I live in the city. And single family homes don't even usually hit the market. They're all pocket listings and they're just word of mouth, and they've got 4 or 5 offers. But we still had some rental properties in North Carolina, and we sold, we went under contract days before everything shut down. And we put it on Friday at noon, and Friday night we had 5 offers. And we ended up, they ended up closing during COVID, but it's crazy. I mean, the market is just crazy. People are able to move around more than they've ever been able to. And with rates like that, who wouldn't want to buy? So I'm glad to hear they're going to stay low and some more people can take advantage of it. That's very good to hear. So, all right. So we are at 11:25. So I thought it might be nice to kind of end and give each of you an opportunity to kind of just think about what you think maybe the year ahead has for our industry. Do you think work from home is here to stay, or what do you think? What does our industry look like to you guys over the next 12 months? And Shonna, I'll go ahead and start with you.
So do I think people are the work from home? I think that depends on where you live in the United States and your market. I said for us, we've been back since June. Some have not. We still have, if you are in a larger commercial building, they're not letting you in. One person comes down with COVID, everybody's shut down. That was the benefit of owning our building. So we early on had UV lights installed. We had ionizers put in our air duct, and I had 5 air purifiers. Then I had this little machine I rented. I call it my dance partner. It's a very small scale, what they have in hospitals, and it's like sends out these UV lights so you can't even be close to it. You got to get out of the room. Just to clean things up and, knock on wood, keep everybody safe. So I think a lot of that, because obviously our air purifiers and ionizers are here to stay. So the hand washing, I think, is going to stay. Depending on your market, where you live, where you work, what will happen. I think the other thing that's going to change and that we need to really grasp is the younger generation wants to do everything on their phones. So that's going to be here to stay as well. And I know that really pushed us ahead probably 3 to 5 years, Wayne, from where we were technology wise, probably. But that's here to stay. And if you're not going to have things that these, I call them kids since I'm 29, no. Since the younger generation can do on their phones, they're not going to want to deal with you as a real estate agent, you as a lender, or you as a title company. They want that technology and the software, and I think that's going to be here to stay as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think I'm gonna add to you, I'm going to pretend I'm young. I'm not young, but I love to do everything from my phone too. So it's not just young people, right? I mean, especially over the last year, more and more people became experts on using their phones or iPads to do what they needed to do. And so I think, you know, it's not just the millennials that are going to be looking for that type of stuff. You're always going to have people that, you know, obviously want hand holding and to see in person, but I do think you're right. I think we need to continue to adapt, and we'll see our market do the same thing. I mean, you know, we actually have a few questions, and Angela, this is for you. So I'm going to ask you a question. You can kind of also answer the one I put out there. But somebody asked if there's an easy way to see what lenders are approving the RON closings, and I don't know of one. I think that's kind of a lender to lender, but I'll throw it to you just in case there is, and I don't know about it.
I don't know about it. I'm happy to ask that question and follow up with you, Leslie, later today.
Sure.
I don't know of an easy one. I know because it's also state to state dependent as well, right. As well as lender, depending on, I don't know if there's some kind of a list, but I will check into that. As far as, I'm going to piggyback on Shonna, and I think technology 100% is here, and we're going to continue to embrace it and adopt it. I'm ready for like a reconnection at some point in 2021. I think our industry as a whole is. I think clients all the way from Washington State to Connecticut, and like Shonna says, it depends on where you are. And I've had some clients who are very happy and want to see me in person, and others that haven't been able to. So we've been doing everything remotely. And so it's just kind of being able to adapt and easily, you know, kind of make those changes. As far as, I think we're looking at a great year for our industry. And I think we should really kind of take the time to think about where do we want to be in 3 years, 5 years? And, you know, we're not going to see these rates forever. So kind of what's the plan when you know, they start to rise moving forward. But, and 100%, you're right, Shonna, they do not have, they don't even have checks. Let's be honest. I mean,
right.
I had to teach my 23-year-old how to write a check. And I had to get him a check even. He had for his EMD. So I think that, you know, as we start to see some of the technologies, I just demoed one that is kind of, I would call it the Venmo of EMD. That so I think that one's exciting. I'm excited to see more about that. But yeah, I think that technology, the reconnection, and you know, just kind of continuing to improve and move forward.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I'll add my 2 cents and then let you close it out, Wayne, is, you know, I don't see most companies throughout the country in a rush to be back in the office, at least not full capacity, which, you know, I don't think anyone expected a year later that the majority of their employees would still be working remote. Most of your large corporations are not, and they've already come out and said, you know, 2022 will be the earliest you'll be back in the office. So I think that that's going to be very interesting to watch and see. I think in our industry is a little different because like people want to come to closing and sign. So I think you'll see it's like a hybrid version of, okay, you're a closer, you need to come in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're not a closer, you can stay home and continue to do your job. I know at SoftPro, we still don't have, we haven't brought back everyone into the office. And so we don't have a set time frame of that. And a lot of it's going to be dependent on the state that they're doing business in. So I think that's going to be very interesting to watch in our industry as to who stays put from a work from home perspective, who goes back into the office, and kind of where that goes over the next couple of years. So, all right, Wayne, you get to close us out. Where do you see us over the next year, and what do you think will be some of the big things?
I agree with Shonna. I think we've moved ahead as an industry 3 to 5 years in technology. Unfortunately, for large parts of the industry, that means they're now at like 2015 in terms of technology they adopt, the things they expect. And that's great because that's so much further than before, but people are going to have to keep adopting at this rate. Unfortunately, it's hard to put this back in the box. And I think like this will probably kill Angela, but also not be surprising. I was telling, my dad was like mortified the other day because I was telling him that I finally realized I haven't stepped foot in a bank, because I am a millennial. I haven't stepped foot in a bank in over 4 years. I own a business, I have payroll, I I've had a loan for the business. I've had a mortgage, all this stuff. I haven't been in a physical bank for at least 4, maybe 5 years because I don't need to. They give me all the technology to do it otherwise, and I've said it.
That doesn't kill me, Wayne. It doesn't.
Say what?
That doesn't kill me at all. I mean, we have 5 branches. I mean, my clients don't go to branches, so you can do everything.
Yes. And I don't think it's, that kind of stuff isn't going to change. And it's hard. I've said this for a long time that, when you have that set experience for so many other parts of your life, we always say, every title company says that this home purchase is one of the biggest moments of your life. And when it doesn't fit into everything else, like my constant example is I can order Starbucks and have it ready for me. And this was pre-COVID, so now it's dated, but I can have it ready for me after the security line at the airport. And I can't, before I couldn't get a mortgage digitally, or I couldn't close with a title company after 5 p.m. or at a location that was more convenient to me. And I think a lot of that stuff's going to change. I think I think the industry is also going to, everybody's dealing with hiring and stuff too. We haven't really talked about that today, but I think the industry's in for a little bit of a rude awakening in terms of, Shonna was talking about millennials and younger people. The millennials these days are 23 to 38, 39. So people still think of them as the kids. They think of them as the really young folks. A lot of them are well out of college by this point, or well into their life. And now you've got Gen Zers coming up. And this goes to Angela talking about writing the check. We've got a Gen Zer on our team. And I joked one time about an intern that I had that didn't know how to address an envelope. We had given her a bunch of envelopes and stamps, and the stamps were just wherever. It was like an abstract piece of art. And she came up to me after the meeting and said, "Hey, I don't want to be fired, but I don't know how to address an envelope either. I know you made fun of that intern, but FYI, maybe that should be on the interview list." But I think those kinds of things are going to wake people up that you thought millennials were super tech savvy. At least, we were using recorders and VCRs, and we understand old tech. These younger folks don't at all. And I think that their expectations are going to jolt us even more than the last group did.
Wayne, I couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you what else is added to that. They've all been doing remote online school for a year, which has, the ones that weren't maybe the most tech savvy now can do stuff you've never even, it's sad that I know what a Flipgrid is. It's sad that I know half of the stuff that they do, right? And it's amazing what they do, and they do it in their sleep. So you are 100% right on that. So, all right, we are out of time. I want to thank all of you so much. I loved seeing your faces today. I can't wait to see them in person. But I want to thank everyone who joined us. I want to thank Shonna, Angela, and Wayne. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, feel free to just send them to myself or Ellen. And as I mentioned before, we will go ahead and send out a recap and a recording. And we will get that out maybe in the next day or two. Ellen does that. Not me, obviously, 'cause I'll probably get it in 2 weeks. So thank you to everybody. We will see you in a couple weeks, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you.